Okay, in this video we will talk about sub searches in Splunk. Okay, so sub searches are really important topic in Splunk through which we can achieve a lot of stuffs. We'll try to understand what are them and how to construct a sub search, what are its limitations and all those stuffs. Okay, now to start with, what first we will do is we'll try to understand what is a sub search. Now, what is a sub search? So a sub search is basically another search within a primary or outer search. That means you will write a Splunk search, right? Now inside that search you will be writing another search within a square bracket, within a square bracket, and then that search will execute, and then we'll see like how it works over there. Okay, so it's basically a search within a primary or outer search. Now a sub search look for a single piece of information that is then added to the as a criteria or argument to the primary search. So suppose sometimes we write a search like index equals to some index name, then some field name, let's say field 1 equals to field some values, right? Then field 2 equals to some other values, right? So those are the information or the criteria or the argument we are adding to that search. Right now those arguments you can dynamically generate as well using a sub search. That's the primary reason behind using a sub search, because we will not know those arguments or those filter conditions beforehand. It will be always changing, right? So that's why we will be generating those arguments dynamically. Okay, that's the reason we will be mainly using sub search. Now that, as I told, like we use sub search because the single piece of information that we are looking for is dynamic. Okay, we'll see examples as well for this one. Now a typical sub search looks something like this one. If you see, this is our initial search, right? So this is the main search or outer search. If you see the not highlighted portion is our outer search, right? Now inside that search, inside the square bracket, we are actually executing another search which is basically finding out the top client IP. Okay, this is the topmost client IP which is purchasing from let's say Buttercup Games website, right? As the Splunk tutorial later we'll be using today as well. Okay, so basically we are trying to find it out a client which has purchased most number of products from the website over there. Okay, so if you see this client, every day or every hour it will be changing, right? Because a single person cannot be that most top buyer from a website, right? So that time in these cases, right, we'll be using sub search to determine which is the top client now, and based on that we will be passing that to the main search to further searching that one, right? Now similar example I can give, like suppose you want to know which host is most busiest host for a particular hour, right? So that will be also changing every hour, right? So that those scenarios we should be using sub search in these cases. Okay, now let's move on. Now how to construct a sub search? So the first thing is sub searches must be enclosed in the square brackets, as I told in the primary search. So we must have a command after the pipe and the before the sub search. Okay, now when a search contains a sub search, the sub search always run first to provide the data to outer search. That means sub search is basically returning something to the outer search. Now from the outer search to inside the sub search, it is not possible. It's the other way around. Like from the sub search we are basically passing some value to the main searches over there. Okay, now the first command of the sub search has to be a generating command like search, event count, input lookup, or tstats. There are a lot of generating commands are available, right? So I created videos for different kinds of command in Splunk, right? Different types of commands in Splunk. So generating command has to be the first command in a sub search. We have to remember that one while constructing the sub search. Now regarding time ranges and the sub searches, like time ranges in the outer search, time ranges specified in the outer search, like we can always mention the time range like earliest equals to earliest time and latest equals to latest time, right? If you provide the time ranges in outer search, that will not be applicable to the sub searches. Okay, now similar way, if you specify the time range in a sub search, it will not be applicable to the to that outer searches over there. Okay, so it is only applicable to the sub searches. Now if you run a query which is having a sub search and you do not specify the times by using that earliest and latest, okay, and but you are selecting the time range from the time picker, then it will automatically apply to the outer search as well as sub searches both. Okay, so we have to understand this one as well. Now we talked about how to construct a sub search. Now let us try to see when we should be using sub searches, right? So one of the things I already told, when you want to parameterize the outer search, right? You want to return something dynamically. That piece you are returning to that outer search is dynamic in nature, right? So in those cases we need the sub searches, right? So using the output of another search. So basically parameterizing one search using the output of another search. Okay, now run a separate search and add the output to the first search using the append command. Now if you see, there are a lot of commands which support sub searches, like append calls, or let's say join, or let's say for each. Those commands are basically, if you see my previous videos on those commands, they have a sub search as well inside them, right? So they actually takes a sub search input over there. Okay, so in those cases also we can use sub searches. Okay, so sub searches are used with commands like join, append calls, for each, etc. Now this is important one. Not all the commands supports sub search as an input. Suppose, let's say we have a command something like this one, source type equals to something, and then multi-kv. Now we cannot use a sub search with this particular one because this is a transformation command, right? So if you try to use a sub search after that, it will not take, because the multi-kv command does not expect a sub search as an argument over there. Okay, so it's mostly used when you want to search something, okay, accomplish within the search. Now there are certain commands, as I told, which such as append, join, that can accept a sub search. In those cases we can definitely use sub searches over there. Okay, now in terms, this is the technical implementation, and in terms of functionality, as I told, like when you want to generate a piece of information dynamically, we will be using sub searches over there. But while doing that, we have to remember these technical limitations as well over there. Okay, now there is a possibility to use multiple sub searches as well, okay, for in a particular search query. Now let us take an example over here. Okay, so let's say I have a search something like this one, index equals to foo, some error, and I kept it like this one because we will have sub searches over here, so that's why some stats count. Now inside this search, let's say I am using another search like this one, search index equals to birth success, some data, it will be returning the data to this outer search. Okay, now let's say inside this search again we have another search, like search index equals to something else, stats count. Okay, so in terms of, as I told, sub searches are run first in a search query, right? Now when you have multiple sub searches, and that too like nested one, this is the nested one, right? So in these cases, generally the most inner searches will be running first. So this particular search will run first, which will basically compute something and return something over here. Okay, based on that returned value, this search will be running now. Okay, now these two are sub searches already done. Now the main searches will be running over here. Okay, based on that value written by these sub searches. Okay, so this is the order of the running of the searches. So this happens when our sub searches are nested. Now let's see what happened when our sub searches are sequentially ordered, like this one, this example over here. I have a query something like this one, then I have a sub search, after the pipe I have a sub search, after the pipe I have another sub search over here. Okay, so in this case it always try to run from left to right, the sub searches. Now we have two sub searches over here, right? So the first sub searches will be running this guy, the second searches will be running this guy, then our main search will be running over here. Okay, this will be the order of the running of the searches. Okay, now let us take a couple of example over here. So for that we'll go to our Splunk Enterprise. Okay, so for today we'll be using the Splunk tutorial data. Okay, so I'll be providing that link for Splunk tutorial data as well. So I just index the data in my main index. So let us do for all time, because I think a couple of days back only I ingested this data. Okay, so this is very simplistic data. We have www secure data, access combined, and vendor sales data, right? So I only index that tutorials.zip file. Now for today's demo we will be using this access combined data. Okay, now because we want to understand the client which has purchased the most number of products over here. Okay, so for that I will choose action equals to purchase over here. Okay, now as it is access combined data, right, so the status we have to check it as 200, because this is the success over here. Okay, so we have total 52224. Now based on when we will be doing that, this number will be changing, because that tutorial later they Splunk always change that one. So this may be different for in your case. Okay, now we know we have all our events over here. Now let us first try to see without the Subsearch how we can do this one. Okay, now if I just try to understand which is the topmost client IP, what I'll do, I'll just write top limit equals to 1 client IP, right? So this will give me the top client IP over here and how many times he has purchased over here. Okay, so if you see he has purchased 134 times. Now if I just wanted to know what are the product IDs he has purchased, what are the product he has purchased, what I'll do, I'll just try to, let's say I'll just try to create another search over here. Okay, with this one. So with the same criteria where it has to be the purchase and the status has to be 200, over here we have a field called product ID over here, right? But I just wanted to know my top client purchased products, right? So that means I have to pass the client IP over here, right? So client IP equals to this guy, correct? Because this is my top client. So I know what are the things, what are the events related to that guy. Now I can use our stats command, right? Let's say this is the count, and then how many, if I just wanted to say this, how many distinct product ID. Okay, what are the different product IDs that guy purchased. I'll be writing this kind of query, right? Very simplistic way. So this is the total count, this is the distinct products, and these are the different product IDs he has purchased over here. Now if you see this approach, we have to write to get whole picture, we have to write two queries over here. The first query will be giving me the top client, which will be always dynamic, right? Then after finding that client IP, we are passing that client IP over here in the second search, then getting the data, desired data over here, right? Now think about this one. When you try to generate a report like this one, it will not be helpful, right? In this case, there is a need that we will be combining these two queries together somehow. Now Subsearches are rescuing us from this type of cases over here. Okay, so what we will do, we will just take the client IP, let's say we'll just say table client IP over here. Okay, from this search, so we'll have only a client IP field over here. I'll just copy this search over here. Okay, so instead of this one, okay, client IP equals to some IP over here, I will be using a Subsearch over here. The Subsearch will be returning the same stuff over there. We will reason through it how it will return as well. Okay, so let us first run this one and see whether we are getting the similar kind of result or not. So I'll just try to run this in a separate window so that we can compare. Okay, I think I copied till that point. Okay, so let us try to run it. Now if you see, it is saying unknown search command, because when inside a Subsearch, the first command has to be a generating command. So that's why I'm writing a search over here. Okay, it has to be for all time. Now if you see, it generated the similar output over here. So this subsearch is basically returning, if I just do the control Z over here, this guy over here, right? Client IP equals to something over here. So that is the main fundamental of the subsearch. Over here, if you see, we achieve lot of stuff. Not only we are dynamically generating something, we actually correlating to different searches over here as well, right? If you are from SQL background, you may know in Oracle or any other SQL tool, we can write a query like select star from table 1 where some ID in select star from other table, ID equals to something, right? So we can basically fetch the ID values from the other table and pass it as an input to the outer query as well, right? So this is the same stuff we are doing it over here as well using a subsearch. Okay, now let us try to understand how it works, how this guy, this subsearch is able to return something like this one. Okay, so for that we need to understand one thing. There is a command called format, which I think I still not discussed in my channel. I will be discussing very soon that one. Okay, if I let's say if I just run this command over here, format. Okay, if you see, it created a new field called search. Okay, and with this kind of input over here, which is very similar to whatever we are seeing it over here, right? So subsearches are always call this format, okay, after them. This is the by default. You do not need to mention that format over here. It will always call that one. Okay, then that's why this format will create something like this one, and that will be passed over here as this one. Okay, now there is a lot of format options over here related to subsearches, which we'll be seeing now. Okay, so for that, let us first try to see what if we have more than one value, more than one field over here. Okay, so for that I'll just remove this top command. Let's say we will work with two columns. Let's say client IP and session ID, this JSession ID. Nothing like no functionality related stuff. I'm just taking two columns over here just to show you how format works. Okay, and we have multiple rows over here. Previously we are passing just single client IP, right? Now we have multiple rows over here. Now if I just call this format command over here, if you see, it created a single field over here, single value field over here, right? And which is nothing but for each and every row it is creating something like this one, JSession ID equals to something and client IP equals to something, or this is the second row, right? JSession ID equals to something and client IP equals to something, or for all these rows it has created this particular structure. So when it will return something like this one. This whole string will be returning to the outer search. Okay, so that's the reason. That's the technical reason how subsearches are passing values to the outer searches. Okay, now in format there are a lot of options available. Okay, now there are two special options are available called, if you have a field name, okay, with field name of let's say search or query, it behaves something different way. Okay, so for that what we'll do is 175 44 330, this has two, I think it has multiple session IDs. We'll just filter out this with this particular client. Okay, so let's do that one. Search client IP equals to this one. Okay, so let us first try to see our data. Okay, it has multiple data. Now let's say I'll just try to again filter with another for a particular JSession ID over here. Okay, so we from this particular search, we have this kind of data over here. Okay, so now let's dedupe it so that we'll just get a single row over here. Okay, now if I just try to use the normal format, Okay, so it will be something like this one, as we have already known, right? So for each and every row, it will be for all the different fields, it will be it will be using AND operator. For different rows, it will be using OR operator over here, right? Now if I rename one of this field, let's say J session ID to search. Okay, this is a very special case. Let's say rename J session ID as search. Okay, so now if you see this, the difference, if I just duplicate it, it will be making more sense because we will be comparing this one. Okay, here we will just keep it as is, the normal format. Okay, and over here we are using this one with search. So when I renamed this particular field as a search, if you see, it removed the field name from here as well. So this type of things are helpful when you want to do some validation, or you want to pass some static value to your search. This type of things are helpful over here, right? Now this you can do with query as well, like you can rename as either search or query to achieve the same stuff. If I just rename it to query, it will be providing me the similar output over here. Okay, so now similarly, if I just let us see what happens if I just rename this client IP as search. Okay, so in this case, if you see, it also removes the client IP field name over here. So you'll be passing something like this one to the outer search for the searching purpose. Okay, now let me give you an example over here how it will be helpful. Now let's say, like, till this point, okay, without renaming it this one, we will pass it to the, we will use it as a first sub search over there. Okay, so instead of this client IP, we'll be using a sub search over here. Okay, so this one we will just remove these stats. We'll just try to see how it is working first. So we have to be search over here. Okay, so it's returning me 6 rows for that particular, if I just say client IP, and for that particular J session ID over here. Okay, now let's say I create another field over here after dedup. Let's say I created another field called eval. Okay, find equals to, let's say I just wanted to find 470 over here. Okay, so I'll just write something like this one, all the events which are having 470 over here. Okay, so this sub search will have another field called find over here. Now I just wanted to find only for the 470 because 470 is not a field value over here, right? So that means I have to rename that find field as search, or rename, or query, rename find as query over here. Okay, so in this case, if you see it over here, it only finding out the events which are having 470 over here. Okay, so in this type of scenario, you can use this particular feature, renaming it to either find, either query or search. Like in future videos when we'll talk about the return command, right? So we will see an implementation of this particular feature only in return command as well. Okay, now if you see it over here, when I use this particular search as a sub search, I did not use the format command over here, because for sub searches the format command will be automatically invoked. Okay, so now let us go back to our PPT again, just try to find out what are the other stuff related to the sub searches. So we have seen sub searches example as well. We have seen the usage of format command with sub searches as well. Now let us talk about the performance considerations of the sub searches, because sub searches has performance impact if the number of events returned by the sub search is very high. Okay, so a sub search can be a performance drain if the search returns a large number of results. That's the reason Splunk always limits the maximum results returned from the subsearches to 10,000 results. And again, it will be based on the which command is invoking the subsearches, because if you see, subsearches can be used by the append command and join command as well, right? So those commands have their inbuilt input which can override this particular limit as well. Okay, and subsearches has to be completed within a 60 seconds of runtime, otherwise it will automatically finalized. Okay, and Splunk will be silently removing those rows which are not present in the result, but ideally should be presenting over there. Okay, so you have to remember this one. Now it may happen that for our case we have to exceed this limit, right? Now we have couple of choices over here, like either we can rewrite the query to limit that one to keep in this limit, or we can use the format command. As you have seen, like when I invoked the format command for multiple rows, it created a single row over there, right? So you can use those type of feature as well, okay, to limit your number of rows. Okay, even still, if these two things are also not possible from your end, so in Splunk limits.conf also there are couple of configurations like max out, max time, and TTL, right? The max out is that 10,000 limit, max time is that 60-second limit, and TTL is the time to cache a given search result in seconds. Okay, so you can play around with this one, but this also changing this one also may have some performance implications, and there are certain comments over here. You should be carefully reading this one and changing this one. Okay, but ideally we should be playing around with the search level as only. Okay, instead of changing this particular settings over here. But if it is not at all achievable by using the search, maybe we can then think about playing around these things. Okay, let's move on. Now, as I already told, subsearches can be used to correlate the events as well, and for there I have given an example, right? We from a SQL world, we can write a query something like this one: select star from some table where field value in selects field value from other table, right? Now if I just try to make it as a subsearch over here, okay, so then we can use something like this one: source type equals to something, search, source type equals to another source type, some field value over here. You do not need to use this format command over here. I just kept it just to remind you over here, but this portion is definitely an optional part over here. Okay, and if you just need to return only the values without the field name, you can always rename that field with either search or query over there, right? Then it will be automatically sending that field values without the field name over here. Okay, so hopefully this video was helpful. So whatever we try to understand over here is different aspect of subsearches, its limitations, and how we can use it technically as well as functionally over there. Okay, hopefully this video is helpful. See you in next video.